Hey everyone, welcome back to the Board Game Spotlight. Today we're going to look at Plunderbund from Huchu Games. It's designed by Woody Hutzel and Adam Chun. It's for 2 to 5 players and it plays in about 60 to 90 minutes. So let's take it to the table and I'm going to tell you about it. Today I've set up a game of Plunderbund for 2 players. Now this board is double-sided and you'll notice that there are a number of spots. This is the 2 to 3 player side, and on the reverse it's 4 to 5. In Plunderbund, you're guild members and you're trying to control the city, this sprawl, this metropolis. You're trying to accomplish back alley dealings. You're trying to do some extortion, selling of goods, and you're trying to also control the different districts in the sprawl. Now the game plays out over a number of seasons. You're going to play 4 seasons going from winter, spring, summer, and fall. So 4 rounds, and what you're attempting to do is fulfill these demand coins. Now, on top of fulfilling the demand coins, you're also going to want to control the different areas for end game scoring, and you're also going to build a deck of cards. So this game incorporates action selection, worker placement, and deck building all within the same game. At the beginning of each season, you're going to look at each of these competition tracks, and you're going to generate demand based on them. So whichever of these cubes is highest, so in the beginning of the game, it's only 3, but over the course of the game, as players move their cubes up each of these tracks, you're going to generate more demand and place more of these demand coins out onto the board. That's important because you need to complete demand for these coins. And in order to score reputation points, which is the way you win the game, you need to fulfill these. Now let's talk about how you do that. Now on your turn, you're going to draw cards from your deck. You have a deck of 8 cards and you're going to draw 5 of those to start the game. Now at the beginning of the game, you'll notice there are some tracks here on your player board. You can only draw 5, but you do have the ability to draw up to 7 cards. And right now with our gray market, which are resources and supplies we use to fulfill demand for these coins, you have a different trade value. So right now it's 4 to 1, but you can get up to 2 to 1. Now each of those tracks are right here. So when you get your cube all the way up, you'll unlock that space. The same is true on the quality track. So moving up each of these competition tracks is vitally important, not only for unlocking some more abilities for your player, but also in being able to fulfill the demand of these coins. And we'll get to that in 1 second. So let's look at the hand of cards that we drew. Here is a city guard, and this is going to allow us to raise our appeal by 1. Now this is really good. In fact, you want to be moving up these competition tracks as quickly as possible, but also realizing there's a little bit of pressure luck in the game because for each of these cards that you use, you'll notice there is a cost associated with it. This is a favor. To take this, you must draw a favor, which is added into your discard pile. This is important because each favor at the end of the game that you do not remove from your deck is worth -1 victory point. But let's say that we activated the city guard, we'd come over and we would move up our track 1. The first person to move up a track always takes the leftmost space, and then the next player comes in and they will take the rightmost space. Now, your hand of cards can be ordered and activated in any way that you want. So looking at all of these, this is going to allow us to place a racketeer. We have +2 reputation, or later we can remove favors from our deck at a pretty solid pace. We can steal 2 goods from the supply, and these are the city goods, and then we can go up in quality. So if we played all of these cards, we would take a total of 1 favor there. So 2 total favor from these cards, and you'll just simply put them underneath the cards to show that you have activated it. So we've activated our city guard, and we activated our craftsman and our thief. And then let's say we want to go ahead and put a racketeer on the board because that's important. Racketeers are going to allow us to extort, which means we do not have to pay supplies for fulfilling these demand cubes. So let's say this was our hand of cards and we activated all of this. We would move up a total of 1 on the quality. And then we take 2 goods from the city supply. And then we also gained 1 appeal, which we've already done. So after we've activated our hand of cards, all of these then go into the discard pile. And you'll notice that we've added quite a number of favor cards into our discard pile. Now this is important because at a later time, in a later round, if we draw any favors from our draw deck, they are immediately returned. You have repaid that favor and you no longer have to keep it in your deck. So there's constant deck thinning of removing favors from your deck, but also the more favors you take with activating your cards, the more you're going to clutter your deck with cards that you may not be able to get to. So you're really going to want to use actions from different cards to draw cards, to dig deeper in your deck. In fact, moving up on the ingenuity track and drawing 7 each round is really important if you're going to go heavy into the favors. After you've activated your cards, you'd then go over to the next player who would then activate their hand of cards. The starting player for each season is denoted by having this starting player token. So this is the winter, and then they have the spring. The other player will start the round in summer and fall. If you don't want to take favor for an action, you may pay 4 to 1. You can pay 4 supply goods to do a favor. So essentially you can use it to activate a card without having to add a favor into your deck. And this also gets better the higher you move up on the quality track. So if you are going to go heavy into goods, you're going to have a lot of supply goods, you may want to go up that track so that you can pay for activating cards without having to take favors. So after we have finished planning and executing our actions, we'll then go into earning goods based on where we sit on the price and quality track. Now you'll notice that there are a number here on each of the right-hand sides. Those are going to help us figure out how many goods each player is going to gain. So you'll notice that you actually don't gain any until you get higher up these tracks. So if both players were here on the 5 and both players were here, they would gain a total of 5 goods. But as you progress higher on both of these tracks, the goods that you earn becomes greater, and you start to get this engine going where you're gaining a lot of goods, which then in turn allow you to pay for favors or then pay for demand coins out on the board. You're going to do this a total of 3 times each round. So we would move from January into February, then we're going to draw another hand of cards and we're going to play through those actions again. At the end of a season, after you have played 3 rounds, so January, February, March, you're going to go into what they call tally. When you tally, you are then going to look at where your agents are placed on the board. So at the end of the round, when we go into our tally phase, we're going to look at each of the merchants in order. So starting from 1, but these are closed. We'll go all the way through 18, and we'll look at each of the merchants that has a demand coin. If there is a racketeer in that location, they will simply extort this good without having to pay for it, and you're going to gain 2 victory points for doing so. But after we have finished with the racketeers, we'll go into the merchants for selling items. And this is where your agents are concerned. Each of the merchants that has a demand coin with an agent, you'll then look to see if that agent has progressed up on the track. So if they've moved up on price, they would be able to supply the goods to fulfill this demand. But if they've not moved up at all on any of these starting tracks, you will not be able to fulfill demand for any of those goods. So neither player would be able to fulfill any ingenuity. Blue would not be able to do any appeal, but both players could fulfill price and quality at the moment because they've moved up on those tracks. If there's only 1 guild present in a merchant, they simply will be able to pay for it as long as they've moved up that track. What you do is you'll place one of your supply goods on it, and you'll be able to pay for that, which is going to allocate reputation points to you. You're going to gain 1 reputation point for each demand coin that you fulfill. You're going to do that throughout all of these merchants. So here at 8, there are no demand coins, but over here on 9, there's 1 demand coin, but blue does not have any supplies in their warehouse. Therefore, they cannot fulfill that demand coin. At the end of a tally phase, you're then going to go into recruiting. Now, recruiting is really fun. This is the deck building in the game. This is gaining more actions for your turns, making your deck a little bit stronger. So there are always 3 cards in which you can recruit. You have a trusted advisor, a huckster, and a prospector. These are always available, and you may take them during this recruitment phase, and you'll notice that the prospector has a synergy with footpad. Now I want to talk about synergy really quickly. Synergy means that if you have a footpad card in your hand to play, so if this was our hand of cards to play, we have a prospector and we also have footpad. Footpad allows us to place and move agents. What that means is we can activate the prospector by paying costs like we normally would, but with the synergy effect, that means that we can now activate footpad for free. We no longer have to pay the favor cost for placing an agent. And there are many different synergies throughout the game. In fact, this deck here is full of cards that synergize with your starting deck. What you're going to do during the recruitment phase is you're going to draw 3 cards in a 2-player game, so it's equal to the number of players plus 1. And starting with the starting player, they're going to take 1. So you'll notice here is a double synergy, the Copper Pincher and the City Guard. When you recruit a card, it goes right onto your draw pile. Now you're going to go to the other player who would recruit, it goes on their draw pile, and then you're going to do that again. You're going to interview a second time, so you're going to get 3 new cards, and it's going to go in reverse order. So now the last player gets to choose first, and then the first player, and then that ends the recruitment phase. So after you recruit, you're going to go into the next season, and again, you're going to generate demand coins. And now, as players have progressed up each of these tracks, you're then going to add all of these together. So 5 plus, so 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So you would then draw 6 coins out of this bag, and you'd place them on all of the locations that are noted. So 3, 8, another 16, there's a 4, and then you would place the remaining ones on the board, 14 and 15. So now you have generated more demand for the game, and now there are more that agents and racketeers can fulfill at the end of the round during the tally phase. So after you finished 4 rounds, you go through for the 4 seasons, you're then going to go into scoring. Okay, so at the end of the game, you're going to go into in-game scoring, and there are 2 things to score during this phase. You're going to look at the turf war. Each of these districts, there are 4 of them, is going to score for the majority of the guild that is there. So we would count all of the guild figures in this district. There are 2 blue and 1 white, so blue would score 5 points and white would score 3. And you're going to do that in all of the 4 guilds. Now that's where the area control comes into play. As you're placing and moving agents and racketeers, you want to keep that in mind throughout the game. One thing I want to mention is that you cannot have 2 agents in the same location. You can have a racketeer and an agent, but you cannot have 2 of your agents in the same location. And so that will make a difference when you're trying to score for the area control or the turf war phase. After scoring points for the turf war, you're then going to look at your deck for disfavor. Remember, any favor cards that were not returned are going to be negative victory points or negative reputation points for you. After tallying your points for the turf war phase and for any disfavor in your decks, whichever guild has the most reputation is the winner. So not only is Plunderbund fun, but there's a lot more depth in this game than meets the eye. The recruitment phase of adding new cards into your deck, which synergize well with each other to gain more actions, is really interesting. There's a lot of great synergy involved with all of them. The worker placement and the area control of your workers and trying to fulfill demand coins and being the highest on a competition track and being able to gain access to those specific demand coins earlier than other players is really interesting. The game looks good. It plays relatively quickly, and overall, Plunderbund is going to be a game that I think a lot of gamers are going to enjoy. So if Plunderbund looks like a game that's for you, if you're interested in knowing more about this, take a look at the description below for a link to their Kickstarter campaign. This has been Derek with the Board Game Spotlight, and this has been your preview of Plunderbund.